Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index. There's a bit of a mixture of nationalities tonight. The French team Lille will be in town, and obviously on Saturday it was more British-style cuisine because battered was on the menu and bees were being served up a treat. Here to discuss all the stats, run through everything, tell us just how serious a threat Lille will be in about 3 hours or so is the nicely coiffured, fresh haircut for this, Dr. Phil Barter. Bart, how are we?
We're good, mate. We're good. We're good. Slim down for the summer months. You can't wear too much hair there, can you?
Yeah, if some of us are in warm climates, we'll say no more about that. But we will work our way back to Saturday. And I mean, I've got to be honest, Bart, stats aside, it was unbelievable what happened just to finish that game on Saturday that we talked about. But it's stats that we're here for because it did seem like we absolutely battered Brentford. Surely that's what the stats are going to tell us tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we did this show in a little bit of depth last night on UP. So anyone who likes the show can pick up on some more detailed analysis there. But yeah, if you look at, I think it's useful sometimes to look at the runner games. We talk about that as well, about how people feel and move it along. But this, in the context of the Forest, actually, in a large part, was just us continuing on that last half an hour. We were very good. Very good is probably a bit of a stretch. I don't think we're back to our very good to excellent, but this was a good performance. I mean, your top line stuff, we typically dominate possession, obviously. Penalty box touches. Having the previous game was I think our highest away penalty box touches recorded. This is now the record of 64 for us. So I think something like that. Anyway, go back to and then we had field tilt of 80 overall, which gives you a massive indication of where we spent the majority of the game in the half, penning them in the final third. But a lot of that, Brentford like to play that. They want to create a bit of a basketball. They would have expected to have more opportunities in our final third if they were looking at this from their analysis point of view. But typically, they do like to give it up because they then want to attack you on the counter. Total shots 37, which I believe is the highest amount an away team's taken in the Premier League since records began. We had 8 on target to their 6, so that's not too dissimilar, but there you go. Penalty box shots. So how many shots did we take in the penalty box, the key area? We had 28 to their 9. And then we big chances 4-1, same as the Forest game. Difference here, 2 goals to 0. XG, we allowed them to have a little bit more XG than we did for Forest, so 0.72 for them and 3.42 for us. So that's an XG difference of over 2, which largely, if we get to that point, we are normally successful in the game. For those of anyone who's seen some bits flying around the football today, it's one of Arsenal's problems is they can't seem to get over that +1 XG difference, right? So they're always a bit on edge with where they go, right? We always seem to be able to eke out to 2, and then we're sort of fairly comfortable from that point of view. One of the things to continue to keep an eye on that isn't quite back to our elite levels is our ability to convert threat to XG. So at the moment, we are below 100 for the second or third game in a row in terms of league. So that's one. Everything else can start looking rosy, but we are still needing more threat than we normally do to create those chances. All right. And then if we look at split in halves, so it was, first half, we weren't bad. Well, I don't think I was bad. You might have a different view, but, 55-45 possession. That's not bad. We did that. Field tilt 80-20. Total shots 19-5. XG 1.6 to 1.4 to 0.4. Sorry. So it's not bad. We just didn't score. But we had a couple of probably good chances. Cody's towards the end of the first half, I would suggest was a big one. Dom slandering his way through and not quite getting a decent shot off, and then also smashing the bar was 2 probably good opportunities, should we say. Second half, though, we really did step it up maybe in a different way. We just really kept them penned in. They had a very few counters, which we'll come on to, but generally speaking, we were in there, field tilt, so 80-20 again, so, increased position by 2%, which is fine, but penalty box touches, we had 32 again, so another 32 and a half. We created slightly more XG, but we converted it at a higher rate to obviously goals because we obviously scored and we created 2 big chances. So I think it was a lesson in sometimes you have to trust the process. You have to trust that eventually you keep doing the thing that is getting you in and you're not quite getting the run of the ball for a chance. Eventually that will come. There's an argument which we chatted about last night about whether if we'd started that process earlier for Forest, we would have eventually got the rewards, because Brentford towards the end very much kind of got tired, because if you keep shifting the ball left, right, intricate passing, which is what we're doing, you do get physically and mentally tired of having to do side shuffle, track. And that is where finally, yes, Harvey and Nunez came on and did some brilliant stuff. No idea how Robbo came on, but anyway, bye. So they came on and they added to that and gave a little bit more energy for pretty much the same patterns of play we've been running. And then Trent was able to put it in a second time into an area he'd already been putting the ball in. And then Nunez was there where we'd been missing a number 9, to be fair. So we added something that we hadn't been having all game and put the ball away. But largely that was because we'd spent, 80 or 6, an hour just moving them around. And eventually they went, oh, yeah, there is a gap there. We can't plug it. And we took advantage. In terms of the sims, as people know, we always run that. In terms of quality chance, 3-0 was probably the more likely probable score. But again, a really high probability of winning the game at 89%. So that's some first half, second half. But overall, dominant stats both half of it. Pass mats, a bit of a return to the crab, if you like, but we're still largely missing in the first half the position in the middle. We changed that up second half, so we got less use of the left side, but but we had a player coming in and playing in that zone, which ended up being quite key. Another useful trend that started to return in this game, we go down to past analysis, is in the Forest game, we'd started to reuse zone 14 and the half spaces, which are these areas here around the goal, whereas the previous 2 games, so the 2 draws, which was United and I can't remember, Fulham might have been, we hadn't really used these areas very effectively. Whereas here you can see we are now back to our levels of highly dominant in these areas. At one point in the second half, we had 4 players in zone 14. Which is asking a hell of a lot of the defensive side to deal with the sharp passing we were doing to then play a ball down the side. So we were getting players in the hot zone, we were dominating that central area, and if we sucked them in there, we just ping it out wide again, which is where you'd see these marks in the half spaces. So there was a lot of things to start liking about this game. The only thing I would suggest, and again, your threat maps show that with a little bit higher up, which is a pattern we saw at Forest in the latter half an hour. Here we started that pattern very early on. Okay, so if we started that momentum early on. Off the ball, not a lot to report in terms of what we did, because we didn't have a lot of defensive actions to deal with, right? Because Brentford did want the ball, whereas Forest didn't, but it was sporadic. We're still not quite back to our usual pattern off the ball. So here we're still a bit not as smooth as win it and play it around the wide into the centre areas. So we're not quite as defined in those areas. And we're also, we're back to some small areas where the previous game we were asking 2 players to cover a hell of a lot of ground off the ball. So we were not doing that as much. So there is some good trends to see us maybe getting ourselves back into getting rid of that funk, should we say, of January and moving back into post-Christmas kind of groove with some smart play, I would say. But largely that process, we just kept plugging away, kept hitting that door, and eventually we got the rewards that every element of this game deserves. And probably, to be fair, I think we probably we should have won the Forest game as well with a very similar process as well in the last half an hour. But that's, for me, it was pleasing to see us continue that development through to getting back to where we were, and I'm hoping we carry on doing that with it switch on on Saturday, where it was at the weekend. But we've got Lille first in midweek, obviously.
Wow. I mean, 3 times as many touches in the box, 4 times as many big chances, a field tilt in both halves as well of 80-20. I mean, it was just sheer dominance from start to finish. And you're right, regardless of what opposition fans are going to say, there was nothing lucky about this. This was well-deserved. And I like the way you phrased that. Sometimes you just have to trust the process and keep doing what you're doing. And they got their rewards for it. No 2 ways about it. And this one's intriguing as well, Bart, because he was only on the field for half an hour. But to be fair, when he scores a double like that, I am more than happy that Darwin Nunez got official man of the match. It'll be interesting to see how his stats profile on this, because we've talked about Nunez before and not always in the most complimentary way. And I know you sometimes like to flag an alternative as well.
I think, don't get it wrong, he comes off the bench. He takes more. So he had 4 shots, which is 2 above his average for the season. Generally, he has 2 shots a game, which is a problem for him because he needs to have a bit more shooting to actually create the chances. So that's good, right? You can't knock him for that. 2 of them are on target as well. Again, that's decent. This is in comparison to where before, right? There were still a few moments where you're like, okay, what are you doing here? Some blind dribbles and the rest of it, but fundamentally, he was on the button when we needed him twice, and he scored. And they both weren't really. He didn't have to think about it. The first one, ball comes across, finish. Second one, touch hit. It's what he's classic at doing. When he first got bought, a lot of people spoke about him maybe being like Batistuta with the kind of touch and finish thing. That second one was very much what I thought was reminiscent of that. There are other elements of his game he's not. But part success, 50%. That's not bad. It's better than some of his other games. Considering the length of time he was on, he didn't lose the ball and received it. He's not going to create a lot in terms of threat because it just isn't him. You know what I mean? So if we look at what he did off the ball, because sometimes he could be a bit erratic with that. So still dual success, 33%. No, but he only had 3 to compete with. So basically, one of them he won. Area was 1 out of 2. So he's not off the ball. Was a kind of very standard for him, maybe a little bit lower in terms of the duels, but he didn't get any fouls away, which is probably a good indication for him, considering that's why he was banned for Forest, giving away silly fouls. And his touches, what did he get? Penalty box touches. So he had 6 penalty box touches, which is only 2 off Diaz, and Diaz was on considerably longer than Nunez. So I think, don't get it wrong. I think that decision might have been swayed by he scored 2 goals, but goals do win you games. In terms of an alternative, I'm just going to go back to a fella that we are going to be missing when he probably does leave in the summer. But I thought Trent was largely outstanding. On and off the ball, I thought he dealt with them really, really well. He actually went full tilt at a couple of sprints back, which he hadn't done since he come back from injury. Yeah. Oh, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of his metrics there. He is above his positional average, which is a far cry from the United one where he was basically well under all of it. So EPV threat, top for the team. The only one he didn't do was aerials, but I think he didn't compete that many, to be fair. So I thought Trent was pretty damn, was back to the Trent we probably know. Kanate again, I think you can see a return to him getting towards fitness because he's back to winning his aerials, and the rest of them are all pretty much on point. The others we spoke about, Verge is Verge. Also, not that it shows up in the wagon wheels, but I thought Ali just got back to being Ali. And that might sound silly, but we're used to Ali being this superhuman. So when he doesn't, yes, Woods' shot was good, but we've got used to Ali saving that. And when he doesn't, you're like, he's just got back to normal. So this was a game where Ali just did everything simple, calm, saved the shots, saved the stuff under pressure, and distributed well. And I thought those sort of key elements came together, which enables us to then keep knocking on the door, process. We dealt with our cancers fairly well. And then Nunez comes on and gets the win for us. So, there was a lot of pieces that are coming back together. Yes, we've got a left-back issue because Costa seems to be the only one to carry that forward. But, largely it was good to see several of our players that we need to be at a 7, 8, 9 out of 10 for the remainder of the season starting to get back to those scores because they dipped to about 6 or 5s recently. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and you're right. It is good to hear. As much as obviously Nunez gets the official award, we need the Canard. Virgil, we expect. We separate him and we expect, as you said, Ali to be superhero. But we need Trent doing his normal business. We need Canate at his level. That's what we need to expect. We've come to expect it as well from them. And the one thing I did want to ask you, the final bit around this, Barts, is naturally the players we're name checking there, the Alis, the Trents, the Canates, they are starters. We've mentioned Nunez. The subs got a lot of praise, and understandably on the eye test, like your Harveys, Chiesa's, Harvey especially because he makes an impact. Do the stats show that? Do they back it up?
Yeah, I mean, Harvey here defensively, not a lot to show for it, but then he's not really going to do that, to be honest with you. Penalty box touches, he got 1, but he's in and around final third 4 times in 16 minutes. That's pretty good, to be fair, for the time he's on the pitch. We look at his attacking metrics. Harvey contributed 3.2%, nearly 3.5% of our threat for a limited period of time. It's pretty, that's all right. 16 minutes worth of game, 75% pass completion, which is playing in a higher area, so we're asking him to take risks. It's pretty good. I think that's not a bad cameo performance. And because I was showing you earlier on where we were dominating the area in terms of zone 14 and a half spaces, that's where Harvey needs to play. If he plays in those areas and the physicality of the game isn't as important because he's coming on later, and that I think Harvey himself said post-match he needed to work on that, right? So he's coming on when they've already had, 70 minutes, should we say, of us battering him. He gets on and it's a lot easier for him to find the space and pick the pass. And he's very good with the weighted balls in behind, the cue, the ticking it, moving it over, those kind of things. Chiesa, for me, it's at 9 minutes of time. It's a bit hard to make a decision on. Yes, he was involved, but I think people are getting excited about Chiesa getting minutes, and rightly so. I don't think I've ever doubted his ability. For me, it was always about his availability. So if he keeps doing things like that, great, he takes minutes up. But it's really hard to judge a player when he's on the pitch for 9 minutes and he has just about 1% of our possession in that time. So but Harvey definitely a useful little cameo. Did some bits with it, which was intriguing. And his threat there to get, nearly 3.5% threat in that limited time, I thought was decent. Where, Shays is on the pitch for half the time. Harvey only gets 0.6 threat. So, I think there's some good bits, but the subs as a whole, I think wasn't that one of the first times that we've come on and had a last minute winner on the slot. I think the subs definitely had an impact on the game, which again stands as a good step because no matter what January window brings us, we're going to need those boys off the bench later in games because it's not going to be plain sailing. We can't seem to nudge it over that 6-7 lead. So this is how it's going to be. It's going to be a bit nip and tucky going forwards until we get probably past this next 5-game block. So I think they were very useful appearances, and Harvey again proving that he can be an asset in the right context, in the right game state.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the game state's probably the key word. But in that game state, he gets an assist. He plays that clever pass for Trent as well. So there's a lot to like. And you do wonder if Arne Slot will start to trust that subs bench a little going forward at the same time. And we'll turn to the opponents for tonight. Lille, just in case you didn't know too much about them, they are third in the French league. These are no mugs. They're definitely not the side all those years ago that rocked up in the Europa League. They've only conceded, as we've seen, 17 goals in the French league, Barts. PSG are a massive outlier in that league as well. To have only conceded 1 less is quite impressive. But in case you've not seen it, people, even more impressive, look at this Champions League table. They are in the top 8. So they are in the automatic promotion spots. And if you don't know, people will easily be looking at that and going, they'll have had the easy draws, all those teams in 23rd, 24th. Well, let's just have a little look at Lille's run so far. They came through the qualifying and it started okay. They got a good win, but look at that. A couple of losses to Slavia Prague and Sporting Lisbon. But look at this for a run, Bart. To beat Real at home and then win away at the Metropolitano is some feat for any team. And even a draw there against Juventus, I'd argue that's not bad, followed by that win away at Bologna, a win at home against Sturm Graz. So let's not pretend we are facing mugs for 1 second. And it's funny, actually, because when you look at their team, it's a proper case of old Barclays men for some of them. Vito Manone, the former Arsenal goalkeeper, 36 there as well. People know Mounier, a few like that. Even, where is he? Killian's younger brother, Ethan's there. Zagova, and me and Bart could easily butcher that name a million times because it's worth 27,000 at Scrabble. So we're going to go with Zagova there. I think that's the name. He's one of the stars. And Jonathan David, who's played 10 in the Champions League and scored 6. So when we're talking about these, Barts, I think it's a modern phrase, but we should be putting respect on Lille's name, aren't they? This is no pushover. I'm intrigued to see what your stats are going to say because it could be tougher than people expect, this one.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Champions League this season has shown that as much as I have to put out there, I don't like the format because of how it's come about. But I do think there's very few games where there are been shoo-ins. I think they've been tough games. Even some of ours, we've had to work hard to get a result. So yeah, I think it's helped. A little have certainly taken advantage of the fact that this format is supposed to help this team because you get a different set of fixtures. You don't get to play the same teams again. It should give you an opportunity, should we say, rather than an advantage. So yeah, Lille here. So yeah, you're right. They've scored 28 goals and they should have scored 31. So they're running a little bit on the cold side in front of goal, only by 3 goals. But I'm just saying they probably should have scored more than they're not. Defensively though, that's 17. Now that is impressive. I'm not going to knock them for that, but they are running hot. I mean, they should have conceded 25, nearly 24 goals. So that is 6 or 7 goals under where they should have done it in the league. So there's some things to maybe think about that in terms of how they go about it. Their expected points. So understand have them at 29 and they've actually got, 32. So it's 3-point difference, which probably accounts for a goal or a piece in one of those games. But if you look at our old favourite in brief, we look at shots they concede, XG, and the rest of it, and how they're going. And if we look at the shots, now I said to you off air before coming on, I was like, these boys here, defensively, they look as much as they should have conceded more, right? Yeah, I think we can take that on board. They have only conceded, in the last 5 games, they've only allowed 9, 10, 5, 13, 13, 11, and they've only allowed 3, 1, 1, 3, 7, 3 shots on target, which that's quite something to achieve that in a game. And there's a club game in there against Marseille, then they're second in the league. So yeah, I think they seem to know what they're doing defensively. Attacking wise, fortunately, their shots are about the same attacking wise, and they're only putting about 3 or 4 on target per game. So you might end up with some form of potentially Forest with a little bit more wanting to attack, should we say, obviously the higher league, but defensively very solid, resolute and organised. I mean, they're only giving up, they're creating recently, have only created just below just over 1.5 XG a game, and they're conceding around the same, or the bit of a variance there with 0.8 in one and 2 in another. So yeah, I think this will be an interesting kind of contest. I think it could be a classic European tactical battle. Passing rates, so they generally have keeping the ball 84%, 83% for the season in terms of passing is decent. Progressive distance, so they're not. What's the variety here? Short. Yeah, so they're kind of a medium, short length passing team, which is those sort of passing chains that are between anything over 10 they probably don't do, but a short, sharp game to a medium game. So yeah, there are some things to think about. Key passes, 10 a game. Okay, XA. Yeah, so there are some bits maybe to keep an eye on, but I'm expecting an organised defensive unit with a way to attack, but might be slightly limited in what they do. I think you only highlighted one of the guys up front who's scoring goals, which suggests everything's maybe you have to go through him to score goals. So, yeah, long and short of it is a classic tactical battle. We have the thing that Lille needs to be aware of is in the last 3 games, we've increased our shot volume hugely from about 20 a game to 30, to 30 to 60. So we've gone a huge shot volume over the last 3 games. So if we increase that and we get the level of penalty box touches, then it could be a difficult night for them. It'll be more about, can we trust that process and what changes he's going to make, which will then impact how well that process runs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's important. It's interesting to see the stats there. Like you say, it is startling how many chances they don't give up, even though Liverpool have been having shots galore, as you said, in the last 3 games. There is defensive metrics are quite strong, even though, as you said, they're running hard. It does tend to be Jonathan David they go through. And the last bit you mentioned there, I want to pick up on, Bart, because there's a lot of talk naturally on how strong are we going to go in this? Because people are looking at the league, aren't they, and thinking rotation. But actually, maybe money plays a part. It's an interesting stat, and we're on Stat Me Up, that on average, a Champions League win is worth about 2.1 million euros in the overall thing. So maybe that comes into it as well, the overall places and finishes. But you look at the big names, and it's almost weird seeing some of our big names on this display in the Champions League format. They have played a lot, Bart. You know that. Some of these big names, no 2 ways about it. Yeah. Is there any concern for you, and I don't know if you discussed it with the Up Boys at all, that if we keep going this strong in games that people would like to see rotation, it is going to hurt us a little bit long term or catch up with us even?
I think there is a danger of that. I mean, Si's covered this a lot on UP about you've got 5 players that are potentially going to exceed their career maxes by more than a suggested 15% increase season on season. There is a bit of mitigation with Gravenberg in terms of he's had a couple of low periods, so there's a difference to that. But he's still not used to doing that. So next season could be a problem for him. So although this season we might just get through things, right? Next season, you could see a problem where you're asking these players who have played a lot of minutes to then go again. So a bit like quad season, right? So we went for the quad, we failed, not miserably. We won 2 out of 4 and arguably should have won 3 out of 4. But the following season, as everyone will remember, our midfield couldn't run. Where the team was basically fell apart. We had nothing because the amount of minutes we'd asked the guys to play the season before was way above the limits that we probably should have done. Now we're playing slightly differently. The thing to say, though, is that we are moving back towards more of a Klopp style of football in the last 2 than we have done previously. The game against Brentford, we had our highest, I think it was highest amount of sprints all season. I have to check that stat with you, but 204 or something like that. So it's there are metrics going up whilst we're also asking the same set of players to do that. But we can still manage that. We can still mitigate that to a degree. I would be surprised if Curtis Jones didn't start this one tonight. I would be surprised if we didn't make a change at centre half, whether that's players sharing a game or whether it's two complete changes. At left back, I would be surprised if Robertson didn't start. Bearing in mind, Costas, I think, now has got himself the starting shirt in the league. Trent and Bradley, it would be interesting. It might be worth giving Bradley a run because Trent's 2 games in a row. He's starting to come back and purr. You might not want to risk that, but equally, he doesn't like to make too many changes. Right, 2 for a game. Yeah. So The other obvious one you could do, it's not a loading, but you've got Kev can play in nets, right? That gives Ali a bit of a break.
Yeah.
Because he has a thing where he's come back, he'd be fine, but we don't want him to go again, right? Up top, I don't think there's actually that much choice. Jota's out injured. Diaz has just done 3-4 games back to back. Cody as well. I think there could be a bit of changes. Chiesa, I don't think he's going to play from the start, although it'd be interesting. He's on 45 max, isn't he? I'm not sure he will do. So yeah, the big call would be not to play Mo. Would be to play Chiesa for 45 and then maybe change for Mo. And maybe Nunez gets a nod on this one. But yeah, I think, that's why I don't think he'll make that many changes. But I do think there is a danger that you've got a few individuals there that are approaching minutes. Like Grav probably could do with not playing this one. His minutes of as I said, are far higher than he's had for the last 3 years. But he still needs to start looking after him because we don't really have a replacement that Slot trusts. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But then he's preferred Endo at centre half, isn't he? Really, SP Frank, he's liked him playing there than anywhere else. So yeah, it would be nice to sit here and go, yeah, he's going to make 6-7 changes. I don't see it. I think he might make 2 or 3, and then he might make some split game changes as well, depending on how the game goes. Or he might just go and win the game, and then we'll worry about it later. I don't know. It's a tricky one, but he should. Me personally, I'm a bit more risk averse, shall we say, than a lot of managers. I would be looking at trying to save some of these boys because Ipswich is a key game. I can't remember who Arsenal got, but Arsenal got a pretty big game at the weekend. So it's kind of important that we just keep that throttle down in the league and don't let that impacted by Grav playing too many minutes here or Don playing too many minutes in a game which I know £2 million to you and me is a lot of money, but in the context of winning the league title, it's not that when you've already qualified for the next round of the Champions League anyway. So yeah, I think there are some dangers. I hope they're taken into account, but typically he's only making 2-3 changes a game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because if you have commented in the chat panel, as you said there, it's 2 million or so euros for the win. But also, if Liverpool do finish in the top 2 in the group stage, you do get slightly favourable drawers, and you face usually 15th to 18th in the playoff. And if you look at that now, with the greatest of respect, the likes of Sporting Lisbon or Monaco, Liverpool would probably take them in the next round, truth be told, for the knockout 16. But like you said, Bart, there is a few there. Would be good to see Szoboszlai rested, Jones in. It would be good to see Gravenberch get the night off. But we will not have to wait long at all because in just under 3 hours, we will be underway, which means just over 2 hours, we will get team news at the same time as well. And fingers crossed, it's a successful game tonight as it was at the weekend. Brentford were battered. Let's see what Lille gets served up then. All it leaves me to say for the final time, as ever, is Bart, for the time, the stats, and the insight. It is much appreciated.
No worries, anytime.
And ladies and gents, that was another Stat Me Up for Anfield Index.